In local matters, we are taking a look at Massachusetts and the upcoming 2018 elections, where incumbent Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren is running for re-election. But it's also speculated that Warren is laying the groundwork for a 2020 presidential campaign run for her party. And former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick hit the campaign trail this weekend in Texas to endorse Democratic candidate Colin Allred in a highly competitive House race. Deval also might put his name into the presidential campaign. Here to talk more about the elections is Politico reporter Lauren Dezenski. Lauren, great to have you. So first of all, why is Patrick backing Allred? And does this say anything about the possibility of him running in 2020?
So we've known that Governor Deval Patrick wants to return to the campaign trail in some way, shape, or form in the midterms. The news essentially that Governor Patrick is hitting the campaign trail this year and really this past weekend was surprising because it was the first real example of where Governor Patrick was going to go. This race in Texas essentially is not that big of a surprise. The Colin Allred race is regarded as one of the most competitive races in the country. And so now Governor Patrick lending his assistance to that campaign really kind of shows that he's back in the mix and that we can expect to see him stumping for more candidates closer to November.
Lauren, let's talk about Senator Warren running for president in 2020. There's so much speculation surrounding her. What kind of chance would she have if she went against President Trump? And what are the latest behind those rumors?
Yeah, there was a blockbuster New York Times story this past weekend that essentially detailed all of the ways in which Senator Elizabeth Warren has been reaching out to Democrats in key states like Nevada, Iowa, South Carolina, and really trying to kind of shore up her support and really build connections with key Democrats. It's also interesting because Senator Elizabeth Warren has kind of sharpened her rhetoric in a way that has been different from the past. Even today, she spoke to the New England Council, a pretty businessy group, and talked about how she believes in capitalism and she believes in markets. Now that's interesting because as far as we've seen, Senator Elizabeth Warren does really, really well among Democrats. But for those kind of in the middle of the road, she has less traction. And so this slight change in her rhetoric really kind of reflects, at least to those who are used to observing her, that she's trying to go after more of a middle of a road type of voter.
Now, the senator, as we all know, has been very critical of the president. Just this weekend, Warren had this to say about the president and the Supreme Court seat. Let's listen to this.
Unions demand accountability, and Donald Trump and his rich and powerful buddies just can't stand it. For 40 years, billionaires and corporate executives have had one mission: kill the unions. And Donald Trump has joined right in. The Koch brothers and the Bradleys partnered with Mitch McConnell to steal a Supreme Court seat. And then Donald Trump delivered exactly what they wanted: a union-busting Supreme Court justice.
Lauren, the president has also used Warren to rally his base. Do remarks like that hurt Warren and her chances of running for election?
Not exactly. You know, Warren, at least in Massachusetts, has been incredibly popular and has remained popular. It's interesting because that speech with the video that we just had occurred in Pennsylvania. This was a speech to a union in Pittsburgh. And so that type of speech, that type of conversation is already very popular among her voters in Massachusetts. And so the next question is, what type of response does that type of rhetoric, does that type of exchange between Warren and President Trump have among potential voters nationwide? And clearly, based on the response that Senator Warren's speech had in Pittsburgh, it was received very, very well. So clearly, things right now are working quite well for her.
Can you imagine a debate between Senator Warren and President Trump? That would be fireworks indeed. Okay, let's go on a more local level. There are several candidates looking to unseat longtime congressmen. One of those candidates is Ayanna Pressley, who was endorsed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Is this a movement we'll see more of in the state?
Yeah, it's interesting because in Massachusetts, the way the Democratic Party politics works, it's essentially establishment versus outsider. And Congressman Mike Capuano, the incumbent who has served 10 terms, has been in that seat for a long time. Boston City Councilor Ayanna Pressley, who's challenging him, is someone who doesn't necessarily represent the outside of establishment type of person that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez represented in New York, but she's striking some of these same themes and really at this point is trying to use the momentum from the victory in New York, and Ayanna Pressley wants to replicate that essentially here in Massachusetts. These are two different races. The incumbents are treating it slightly differently, but Ayanna Pressley has seen an increase in interest, in financial donations, as well as just excitement around her candidacy after that victory.
A lot of interesting races to watch. Lauren Dezenski, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.